Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Newark and Sherwood series, a district of 84 civil parishes right in the centre of Nottinghamshire. Come with me as we delve into one of them. Welcome back to Newark and Sherwood, everybody. Now, I love finding a village where a village sign shows you pretty much everything you can expect in the place. This one definitely does that, because here it shows you we've got a river, we've got a little bridge, we've got a signal box and a level crossing, cricket club, we've got a little clock there. I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but I'll find that out. There's a church, obviously, got a war memorial here, loads of things. Now, one thing this doesn't show is a prison. There's a prison in this one as well, and something else it doesn't show you is how to pronounce the name of this place. Now, I don't know whether this is Lowdham or Lowdham. See what you think. I did ask somebody before I came here and they said it's Lowdham, but online the tendency is towards Lowdham. Whichever it is, I'm about to walk around it. Let's go. It's the parish of Lowdham/Lowdham. This Newark and Sherwood video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find a link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to the parish of Lowdham, or Lowdham, whichever way you want to say it. I've heard both ways. For the purposes of this episode, I'll go with Lowdham, as I find it easier to say. Lowdham is a large village just to the east of the Greater Nottingham Area. It has two main roads slicing through it, the A6097 bypass, which we met in Gunthorpe, and the A612 from Nottingham to Southall. The name seems to be an Old English masculine personal nickname deriving from Hluda, making this Hluda's homestead or Hluda's village. However, the name also points to a Danish origin, corrupted from Ludham or Ludholme. Whatever the case, today Lowdham is a big village, one with a population well in excess of 3,000. Industry-wise, the main employment here in the 19th century was framework knitting. There's now little sign of how important it was. In 1844, there were 94 stocking frames working in Lowdham. There was also a paper mill located to the northeast of the A6097, although milling was much less important here. Modern-day Lowdham is a good place for commuters, owing to its excellent bus services and the fact it has a railway station. Perhaps its most famous resident was Harold Cottam, who saved over 700 lives in 1912. Despite that, he was and still is something of an unsung hero. Let's find out what he did as we explore Lowdham. We begin on Main Street, the former main village thoroughfare before the A6097 bypass was a thing here. Our first landmark is Morley's Garage. Main Street has plenty of shops and businesses. It's a thriving village centre, always busy and full of people. It's literally got everything, from small independent retailers to a big co-op store. The village centre has also got quite a few notice boards, so I took the opportunity early on to mark Lowdham off our list. 23 to go. Here's a primitive Methodist chapel. Still in active use, this is known to the locals as the Bottom Chapel. We'll see the location of the former Top Chapel a little later. Lowdham is not short of food places either. Here, almost opposite the chapel, we've got a pizza house and a Chinese takeaway. Not far away is the Co-op store. This is the third Co-op Lowdham has had to its name. The current building still has a date stone from one of its predecessors. Straight away I can tell you this is the kind of village that I like, a nice thriving village centre, but not the biggest village in the world. Those are the sort that I really do like to get my teeth into. As well as everything I've shown you, it's also got a pharmacy, and over the road we've got a pub called the Old Ship. Now this has got a blue plaque on the side of it, so let's go across and have a read of said blue plaque, and it says, Harold Cottam, 1891 to 1984, unsung hero, wireless operator on RMS Carpathia. On April the 15th, 1912, received Titanic's call for help. His diligence and prompt reaction were instrumental in saving 705 souls. He was born in Southall, but he retired to here in 1958. How about that for a bit of local history? Our next stop is the village hall, outside which you'll find this heritage trail board. I'm effectively following this with a few additions here and there. The current Lowdham Village Hall was opened by the chairman of Newark and Sherwood District Council. Lowdham had an earlier hall which was built in 1948. It was only ever meant to be temporary though, and in 1981 it was replaced with the hall you see today. There's more on this later. Let's make for the post office next. Outside the post office is a gold pillar box, painted to honour the Paralympic sprinter and Lowdham native Richard Whitehead, MBE. He won gold in the men's 200-metre sprint at the London 2012 Olympics. His name has since been added to the local bus service that links Lowdham to Nottingham. Over the road is a shop called The Bookcase. This used to be a pub called The Old White Lion. In 1925 its licence was revoked and it's never been a pub since. So we've reached a rather nice road sign. This one looks new. It's certainly shining in the sunlight. You can see here what's close by. We've got the station, which is half a mile that way. That's further around the route in that direction. Gunthorpe 2 3/4 miles. Epperstone 1 3/4 that way. Woodborough 2 1/2. And then if you were to turn down this road here, that would take you towards Lamley, which is 2.5 miles away, and the church, which is half a mile away. Now we're heading for the church, but we're not going that way, we're heading that way. We're going round in sort of a loop round the top of the village first. And our next landmark is that clock I found on the village sign. So that clock on the village sign can be found on the wall of the old school. This was built in 1843. Lowdham still has a school, and we'll see it in a moment. The clock is arguably the main focus here. It was added in 1911 to honour the coronation of King George V and Queen Mary. It's been restored since then. That took place in 2012, this time to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. It remains one of Lowdham's most prominent landmarks. A few steps away to the north is Franklin Road, and that's where you'll come across the village's library and health centre. Even though Lowdham still has a thriving village centre, there are clues as to how much busier it must have been in times past. There's some old workshops and shop fronts dotted along Main Street here and there. Where Main Street becomes Epperstone Road, we find the current Lowdham Primary School. And outside the school, you can see at the moment there's a lorry that's come from Brakes, which is a food delivery company, and they're based in Grantham. Fun fact for you, my brother used to work for them a long time ago, so that was a bit of a memory for me there, seeing one of their vans. Anyway, let's carry on walking. We're almost at the top of the village. I can see a bus over there, so the next thing to talk about, I guess, is what public transport is like around here. The bus you can see here is the number 300. It goes to Newark. There's also a 747 service that runs to Oxton from this stop. The stop in question is opposite the Lees, a retirement housing complex built in 1971 and run by Newark and Sherwood District Council. This is the Lees Community Centre. We take a short hop across this road now. Hello again, A6097. Here it's known as the Epperstone Bypass. We're making our way to a footpath. This path runs all the way up to the church, and if you look to your right as you walk up this, in the distance, you'll see a tall building. And this is it, but it's not what I thought it was. Looking at the map, it suggests that this is the Firs residential care home, but it's not. Does anyone out there know what it is? Anyway, the path eventually brings us to Church Lane, where we can access the churchyard at Lowdham's Grade 1 listed Church of St Mary. Alright, we've arrived at the church, which is quite a long way out of the main village actually. It's on the other side of the main road, the A6097. Here it is. So let's have a bit of a chat about this next, shall we? St Mary's Church dates from the 13th century but was restored in 1860 by Scott. The spire was repaired in 1883 and the chancel restored in 1890. It features some interesting memorials, the most notable of which is a cross-legged effigy of Sir John de Lowdham, clad in chainmail, which dates from 1318. At his feet there's a dog, which suggests he was a crusader. This is symbolic as many followed the standard of the Lord as faithfully as a dog follows the footsteps of his master. This was locked, so unfortunately we won't get to see it. After leaving the church behind, you enter a part of Lowdham that's full of massive, grand old houses. Here's the Old Hall, one of Lowdham's listed buildings. In the grounds of the hall, there's a castle mound, sited alongside Cocker Beck, a watercourse we'll see shortly. This part of the village is a conservation area, and it's very leafy. Check out all these tall pine trees. You may as well be in a forest at this point. So I've literally just said to myself, this is a completely different world. This could be another village. It really could. It's so far away, isn't it, from the thriving village centre that we saw earlier. I know there's a few cars flashing through here, but generally speaking, this part of the village is much quieter. Certainly much more in the way of foliage, plenty of trees and things. And I'm out of breath actually, sorry guys, because it's just because I've climbed this hill. That's actually steeper than it looks. So we're going to head back to the other side of the village now, and in doing so we're going to be heading this way, taking a right then a left, and via a footpath we'll end up at the playing fields next. We're now in the oldest part of Lowdham. Tun Lane, the road we're about to leave, was the location of Top Chapel. The next part of the route takes us down Plough Lane, and along here is another pub. This is the World's End, and it was formerly known as the Plough, matching the name of the street it stands on. If you cut through the pub's car park, you'll find an opening which will take you back across the A6097 again towards the village's playing fields and Cocker Beck. The land you can see here is part of what was known as the Big Field. During the late 1930s, when the A6097 was built, it split the Big Field in half. In 1949, this part of it, some 5 acres, was turned into playing fields for hockey, cricket and football. Alongside it is Cocker Beck, which does give Lowdham some flooding issues, as this board tells you. At the other end of the path you'll find yourself on Southall Road, where there's a pub called the Magna Charta. Okay, we've got one section left on the main walk, and that's the south of the village, the area around the train station, and there's also the War Memorial in this part too. Here we are, here's the memorial, and it overlooks the playing field which is in the background there. I've just walked down here, across the road to this point here. It's quite a large memorial, as memorials go, do you not think? And it stands in something called the Garden of Remembrance. Absolutely magnificent memorial, that one. Love it, love it. Quite a lot of names on it as well. from both World Wars. A lot from World War One here, look. Loads from World War One, and only 4 from World War Two. So a bit of a mismatch there, but of course every single one of those names is a hero. Our last major landmark is Lowdham Station, which is on the Nottingham to Lincoln railway line. Its buildings were probably designed by Thomas Chambers Hine. Now unstaffed, Lowdham Station originally comprised a combined station building and station master's house, a weighbridge hut, a goods shed and stables for horses. There's also a signal box here. In times past there was a second one next to the level crossing, as well as a waiting room, a porter's room and a lamp hut on the opposite platform. Next to the station is another pub. This one is the aptly named Railway Inn. This is an award-winning gastropub which is independently owned by the Secret Pub Company. After that we head up into another of the village's new housing estates, aiming for Old Tannery Drive, which is off Southall Road. And after walking through the houses, and getting lost at one point I might add, we find ourselves at Lowdham's community building. And speaking of community buildings, on the walk back to the car we pass the Women's Institute at number 1 Main Street, and that is the complete circuit of the village of Lowdham/Lowdham. I still don't know how to pronounce it even though I have been sort of saying both things throughout this video. Anyway, there's one more thing I need to talk about in this episode, and that of course is the prison, which I mentioned right at the very beginning. So let's hop in the car and let's go and find it. Well, all the best laid plans still have flaws, don't they? So I was driving up to the prison and I saw this sign that says private property, no unauthorized persons or drones allowed in this area. Now this camera of course is not a drone, but I am an unauthorized person, so I'm not going to go any further, which means that HMP Lowdham, or Lowdham Grange, is going to be the subject of today's special section. HMP Lowdham Grange is a Category B men's private prison, which at the time of filming was operated by Serco. Since February this year, it's been operated by Sodexo. It's built on the site of the former Lowdham Grange Borstal, which closed in 1982. It was opened as a privately financed, constructed and managed prison in 1998. Between 2008 and 2010, Lowdham Grange was expanded by more than a third, creating 260 more cells and a 2-storey activities building, a project that cost £56 million. It's a prison, so it's going to have a few stories to tell, as you might imagine. For example, soon after opening, it emerged that one of its custody officers had previously been employed as a security guard for the gangster Reggie Cray. Needless to say, it wasn't long before he resigned. In 2006, a prisoner serving 10 years for burglary escaped from Lowdham Grange by hiding in a shipment of chef hats, which are manufactured in the prison's workshop. I think one of the most annoying things about not being able to use the camera up at the prison just there is that when you come down the hill, you get this great view, but obviously I can't use the camera, so nothing much I can do about that. We've now come down the hill, and before I make my way back onto the A6097, I'm just going to tell you a bit about the Springfield Inn, which is another pub here in this village. This one's a bit out of the way, of course, because it's next to the prison and actually not in the village itself, but there it is. There's the Springfield Inn. I'll just go a little bit closer to it so you can get a better view of it. It's quite a big pub, actually. It's a bit bigger than the ones we saw in the village itself. I'll stand about there. That'll probably give you a good idea of it. And there you go. That is the parish completed. Another one down in Newark and Sherwood. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot. This has been the parish of Lowdham / Lowdham, and I'm out.